If you have, if you've ever wanted to know how many miles it takes to accomplish your different running goals, I'm going to go through that today. We're going to talk about what it takes to um, do a 5K for the very first time. So, like your run walk option. I'm going to talk about doing stuff that running that you want for fun, what it takes to run a sub 2 minute or sub 2 hour half marathon, what it takes to complete a marathon, and then what it takes to really get after a full marathon, and whatever your time is, like what it might take to really push towards your own limits. And obviously, this is going to progress in how many miles per week you probably need to run. I'm also going to let you know where workouts might need to start being implemented into a system like this. So, what I did is I broke down the goal, what I thought. I went through and wrote down everything I thought, and then I went in and looked at what like Higdon or Daniels or Fitzinger, all really high level marathon coaches who have written books, and I love their books, what they would say in a situation like this. So the first one, how many miles per week should you run if you are doing it for enjoyment and just general exercise? First off, that's entirely up to you. Second off, this is one thing that I think the government actually did right in the US in telling people about exercise. So the guideline for the amount of exercise that you get throughout your week is about 150 minutes. So that is about 2.5 hours of exercise time. And frankly, I don't care if you do it running or any other kind of way. I think the real benefit is that you are out moving and you're enjoying what you're doing. Now, if you want it to be running or walk, jogging, whatever that might be, um, that's totally cool. And if you want it to be more than that, if you enjoy going out to run more and you like that it clears your head and that you feel better afterwards, then fantastic. Um, so that is the first part of this is if you are going out to enjoy stuff, enjoy your running. That is super cool. You don't have to have anything in running world. It would be considered like base mileage, where you're not in any sort of training program. You're going out to do what you enjoy, and you don't really have too much pressure on what you're doing. But for everybody out there, I do recommend trying to get 150 minutes of exercise in per week. However, you want to split that up. It can be as small as 10-minute increments, to be really clear. So you can get stuff and it doesn't have to be like crazy. You can get like mileage or exercise. It doesn't have to be crazy. If you want to do your very first 5K, what do you really need to be thinking about? What do you need to do? Um, I think if you can start with walking a couple of times per week and jogging a couple of times, or walk jogging a couple of times per week, that's really good. I would aim for 3 days. I think if you can get 3 days of consistent like walk jogging, you are going to get in shape relatively quickly and you'll see a lot of the benefits start to happen pretty fast. Um, so I would aim for maybe like 10 miles per week. If you want to go as high as 20 miles per week of walking and jogging, you'll get in shape for a 5K pretty quickly. Um, I think anybody really could do a good job with that, and you can totally walk a 5K. Like if you've uh, been to things before, um, you know that like walking a 5K, if you've been to any sort of races, walking a 5K is super normal. It's just kind of what works for you. So, do you need to do workouts to run a 5K? To complete it? No, definitely not. If you want to run really fast, obviously, like Jakob Ingebrigtsen is running a 5K in under 13 minutes, he has to do workouts. Um, the workouts are going to vary based on how fast you want to run, but a lot of it is going to be about just keeping as much speed as you can in your legs. Um, so answer, to get your first 5K? No, not at all. Don't need to do any sort of workouts whatsoever. If you want to run fast, yeah, you need to add some speed in. That usually is going to look like some sort of interval where you're running at, near, or above your 5K goal pace, and then having recovery intervals in between. Now, a A half marathon completion is a little different, especially if we're run walking. This is when we really do need to start adding some miles every week. If the goal is completing the half marathon and you don't really have too much writing on it, it's just like, I want to get this done. You're going to want to peak around 20 miles. I do think getting a good long run in and then a couple of base runs throughout the week's great. So if you can go for 3 to 4 times per week, um, of exercising, you're going to get a lot of progress pretty quickly. And a ton of people end up wanting to shoot for that sub 2 hour half marathon. At that point, we're going to bump up a little more. So this is where I started to pull in Higdon and Fitzinger. So I looked at Daniels and Higdon for this one. If 2 hours is a really serious attempt for you and like it's going to take some work and effort to accomplish that goal, Daniels says you should be aiming for 30 plus miles per week for what would be considered like a serious attempt. And I think that's pretty fair. You can break 30 miles per week for a peak into a pretty reasonable week. So you can get a long run of like 10-ish miles for your peak week. If it's 12 or more, like that's totally cool. And then if you want to add in like, okay, so we get 10 there, so we've got 20. If you're running 4 days a week, you get 20 here or 10 here, so you got 20. So that's a couple of 4 to 6 mile runs or 3 to 7, depending on how you want to break that up. I think that's more than reasonable if you're really taking it seriously and going for a big goal for yourself. Um, for me, when I was doing my half training, I wanted to go a little faster than sub 2. So my goals actually this year to be in the 120s. And although I missed it a little bit on the first attempt, I was running like my peak was 44 miles for a singular week. And I was running well over 13 miles. So it just depends on what your goal is. If you want to just complete it, you can walk, jog, and get some moderately long runs and walks in there. If you want to run really fast, the elite people that are running half marathons in 60 minutes are running probably 100 miles a week plus. Um, so it's always a big scale. If you're trying to run a fast attempt, you will need to add workouts in. So my wife is a perfect example of this. She's awesome and was able to run sub 2 hours for a half marathon. And she was adding speed intervals into her workouts throughout her training block. So you introduce it slowly, right? So you do a couple, maybe 6 harder spurts of, call it between 30 seconds and 2 minutes of harder effort where you're closer to race pace. And then you rest in between. So you can build that up longer and longer as your runs get longer as well. So sub 2 half marathon, my thought was about 25 miles per week. I think a lot of people can make it happen. It also depends on your background. So some people are able to just walk out and run a sub 2 hour half. I think that is a little bit of the outliers of the world, but it is true. There are some people that can do that. Other people, it's going to take a lot of effort. I think the middle of the line person that is just an do it to enjoy it runner, I think 25 miles a week could get a lot of people to a sub 2 hour half. If you have a different experience, let me know though. That'd be super interesting to hear. Now, marathon finish. I think the marathon is really underestimated. I think completing it is a pretty good bit harder than some people might realize. I think the bare minimum you need to be doing to complete a full marathon is like 30 miles a week, and really think it should probably be higher than that. If you want your long run getting up to that 16 to 18 mile range on the low end before the marathon, and I do think that's really important. If you're getting to 12 or 13 miles, it's like you can probably get a full marathon done, but I don't think you're going to have a good time. And I think the recovery from it is going to be way harder than it needs to be. If you are consistently hitting 20-mile long runs, finishing a marathon, you're going to feel okay within a handful of days. I ended up my longest run was 17 miles, but it was with a lot of vertical gain. So it was a lot of time on feet. Um, and I finished my marathon and I was like, okay, I'm fine with this. So yeah, if you're doing a full marathon, you really want to focus on that long run. So if we're saying, I don't know, let's for easy math, call it 15 miles for a long run, then we would want to have 15 more miles throughout the week. That's not a ton of training. I think you could get it done. I don't think it would be super fun. Fitzinger says 35 to 40 miles a week should be standard before you're getting into a marathon training program. And I think that might be a little high. I think that's for people who are starting a marathon block that are really not trying to crush it, but trying to really give a good effort at it. And then Higdon, his novice plans peak at between 35 and 40 miles per week. So I think that's like a really healthy spot to be. I think you could get a marathon done in a really comfortable way, peaking around 40 miles. So marathon finish, aim for probably 30 to 40 miles per week, and you'll have a nice result there. To run a fast marathon, to really put an effort into it, it is going to take more effort. I'm planning on peaking between 50 and 60 miles for a week going into my marathon in December. Um, and that's going to be after I do my 50K this spring and I have a nice training block in the fall. My wife said, I think I want to do a 30K, which is going to be great because it's going to be like another opportunity for me to get longer runs, more time on feet, pushing the number of miles up. So I think really good effort. My thought was 50 miles per week plus. Now, to hit on Fitzinger, he says his lowest advanced plan, which I think is like kind of how you would want to frame it, like if you're really giving a good effort, is 55 miles per week. And then Jack Daniels, one of the best running coaches ever, um, has most of his runs hitting between, or most of his plans hitting between 50 and 70 miles per week, and his peaks can go up relatively high. So I think I'm on the low end of all this, but it's because I think a lot of people can get more done than they expect. But I think to see real big results that you might be chasing, you need to be closer to 50 to 70 miles per week. I think that's great. As for workouts, if you're trying to run a fast marathon, you almost certainly need to be doing workouts in there. You can do interval styles, you can do progression runs, you can do steady states at marathon pace. Like there are a lot of different kinds of workouts you can do. But I think one of the things people kind of get a little confused on is if you're doing your long run and that's like always easy, by the time you're fatigued and in a marathon running further than you maybe have ever before, your body is going to be going like, whoa, 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 what's going on? And although there is race day magic, I think the big progress comes when you have enough time for your body to say, I know what race pace is supposed to feel like, and I know what it feels like when I'm fatigued. So I think workouts get really, really important, especially in these longer duration events. So those are my big things. As always, I do this as a live stream, but I want to start with something useful in the videos. So if you guys have any questions, I see a couple of folks are hanging out in the chat here. If you have any questions about your own running, about how this might apply to your own situation, if you have uh, things that you're interested in talking about running wise or not, I'm all ears. Normally I try and get some ideas from folks out there, what's going on, what's going right with their running, and just try and diagnose as much as I can. Um, if streams like this are helpful, I do have my Ontos running brand. You should see a shopping thing below. So if you want to support a small creator, that'd be super sick. Would always appreciate the support. Um, I do these in part because I don't want to do like a paid coaching thing. I've done coaching for a long time, and although I love it, I want to be able to give away information freely that is something that's important to me. So I use this as an opportunity to let folks ask questions, and hopefully I can make it applicable to lots of people out there. So let me know, what do you have going on in your running. I mean, I see a couple people are there in the chat. Um, Let me know. Would love to see some folks pop up. If not, I can go back through and like talk about workouts that I could see being useful in these different like progressions. So like your 5K versus half, finishing a fast full marathon. So if I don't see anything in a minute or two here, I will go ahead and start getting into that. Let me know. All right, I'm not seeing anything. So we will go ahead and pop into this. So workouts for a 5K, as I said, there's a huge range of what that can look like. If you are used to your 5Ks being like kind of a walk jog, I think you can progress that to just being a continuous jog. So you can do that by increasing the intervals when you're training. You can increase the intervals of time that you are running and then slowly decrease the amount of time you're walking. Of course, that makes sense, but how would you do it in application? If you are used to walking for say 2 minutes or running for 2 minutes and walking for a minute, I think that's a relatively standard, really early way you can do it. You can go for like 2.5 minutes and maintain the rest until you get up to say maybe, I don't know, let's call it 5 minutes continuous. So you run 5 minutes continuous instead of two, and then you still rest for 1 minute. Then what we can do is we can keep that 5 minutes rolling, and then we can reduce the rest by just a little bit. We could take like 15 seconds off. So now you run for 5 minutes on and 45 seconds off. And then you can progress that down to where you're doing like 7 on and 30 off. Then it's like, oh man, you're pretty much running the whole time. And that's how you can get to a continuous 5K running for for somebody who's trying to run faster. So like, I want to run sub 18 by the end of the year. I think that'd be a really cool goal. So I'm going to be doing some more speed oriented workouts where I'm doing like 800s, 400s, and mile repeats. So I'm going to really, on 400s, I'm going to try and be at or faster than my goal pace with pretty short rest. So say 400s on like 30 seconds of rest. So I'm going to be near or above my threshold, my aerobic threshold. And when I go into the rest times, I'm going to come down and then go back up and come down and go back up and come down. And that makes my body better at clearing lactate and some of the byproducts that cause fatigue. Contrasting that with the mile repeats, if I'm doing, let's call it 6 by 1 mile, it's going to be happening slower than my goal pace if my rests aren't pretty long. I think last year I got up to 7 by 1 mile around my goal 5K pace with like a minute or 2 minutes of standing rest. It might have been 75 seconds standing rest is what I did. And that workout was super hard. By the end, I was like pretty well gassed. I don't know if I would have been able to do an 8th rep. So that's how you can do longer runs. Hi, Adam. Happy to see somebody in here. I hope your morning's gone well. I hope your 5 a.m. Workout went well. What did you guys end up doing for the day? But that's how you can do workouts for 5Ks. You can do the shorter, or you can build up your walk jog to where you're continuously running for an entire 5K, which is phenomenal. Or you can do a longer run, or as you're trying to get faster, you can play with intensities and rests more to spend time at or around your goal pace. The workout was rough. It was a 10-minute AMRAP of 5 sandbag cleans and 10 burpees. Oh, I love that. That's a very fun workout. I love sandbag cleans. I think that is a highly underrated movement. I think sandbags in general are a highly underrated implement, whether it's a carry or a clean over the shoulder. I think you can do so much cool stuff with sandbags, and I think it makes your back really strong and it feels very functional and lifelike. I love that. Half marathon. What would some workouts like that look like? When would they be useful and stuff? Oh, we use the sandbag every Saturday. Feels like picking up my kids. Yeah, totally. And I think that's kind of the goal of all of this fitness stuff, right? So that the rest of your life can be good and go well and all of that fun stuff. So, half marathon, what would that look like for your workouts? That's when your workouts can start getting longer. So, I think like you can do 2 mile repeats. So, you do 2 miles on and then maybe a half mile off. So, that's going to be, let's go up towards our race pace, which is going to be a little slower than your threshold pace. And then you come down for about a half mile. That's plenty of time to clear out a lot of these byproducts. And it lets you get more comfortable at or near your race pace. And you can do all sorts of things. You can play with rest intensity here as well. You can also play with volume. So my longer runs for the half marathon that I was training for, I think I ended up at like a 15-mile long run prior to it. And um, I was doing, I think steady states around 5 miles of my goal half marathon pace. So of the 13 miles, I'm spending, or well, I guess in the workout context, it's 15 miles total. I'm spending a third of that at my half marathon goal pace. So you can do steady states like that. You can do cut downs. So like you start really easy for, I don't know, call it 3 miles, and then you cut your pace down to where you're again at or near your goal pace. If it's a workout like that and it's not overly long, you can even do a couple of reps that are faster than your goal pace, which I think is always a signal to the body like, hey, we need to know how to run faster than the goal pace as well. Marathon workouts can get really tough. So you can be doing like 5 by 3 miles at race pace. So that's 15 miles at marathon race pace. And then you have rest intervals in between. And then you can do like a 20-mile long run workout and stuff like that's really hard on the body. But it makes you really fit so long as you are within your depths and like you're not pushing substantially more than your body is able to handle. So that's how I would maybe look at some workouts for 5K all the way up to marathon. Again, if anybody else is in the chat, say hi to Adam and say, what's up? Let me know how your running's going. I do see there are people in the chat here. Hey, chat. Adam, I appreciate this. This means a lot to me. I do appreciate having somebody in here at least that I can talk with. When are we getting you to sign up for a 5K? I think that'd be a fun one to see. I think you would be so fine with that. I think you would be able to crush a 5K pretty quick. The question is, how fast could we get you to run it? Does that mean we need to sign you up for a program? Ah, hi Garrett. What's going on? How is your running this week? I haven't gotten your weekly update yet, so I would love to hear a quick, 8-mile run walk coming tomorrow. Brilliant. I love that. You have many times you've run a sub 40-minute 10K? Adam, I did not know that. That's banging quick. Let's go. Garrett, I was talking about run walking earlier. What is your programmed running and walking interval for this, if it's programmed that way? If it's not, and you're just planning on doing some amount of steady state and then walks where you need, I'd be super interested. It's been a lighter week, only 1.8 miles due outside of long runs, so hoping to break has been nice on my legs. Oh, dude, that is awesome. I know that your knee was bugging you a little bit. 1 to 2 miles right off the bat for the run. Cool. Adam not running anymore. Honestly, I get it. I hope you have a great time. I hope the lambs are doing well. For anybody that doesn't know, try the sandbag workout. Yeah, I ought to. Adam runs a farm and he just had some lambs. So that's super cool. Okay. Garrett, you're shooting for 1 to 2 miles off the bat and then walk 0.1 to 0.2 miles before going a minimum of a half mile. I love that. That's a really good mix. So again, everybody who isn't in this chat every day, Garrett is training for a half marathon and has gone from a lot of longer intervals with walking and jogging to the point now, if we are walking, let's call it zero point 0.1 just for some easy math, and running a half mile, that's a 5-to-1 ratio. That's getting really good and really close to the point where that just turns into running the whole way. So that's so cool. And the longer you do that, the easier those half mile intervals feel. The easier the half mile intervals feel, the less you feel like you need those walking breaks in between so it can go longer. So maybe at some point it's going up to, it could be a mile continuous with zero point 0.1 to 0.2 miles in between. So that's like a 10-to-1 ratio. And then it really does just smoothly transition into your easier runs throughout the week that aren't quite as long. You can just run those continuously. And then that bleeds into a nice, easy effort long run that is a continuous run. So super cool. Also, want to put a caveat in there. Like, there are times in my runs where if I have to stop to cross a road or like grab something out of my car, if I'm like stopping back by, I don't think like continuous means that you can't stop your watch for any amount of time. So like Connor Mance, who is the American record holder in the marathon, will still occasionally stop his watch within his long runs to give him time for like folks that he's running with to catch up if he has a harder effort, or to go to the bathroom, or like any number of things. So when I say continuous, I don't think it has to be like entirely continuous. The watch runs the entire time or anything like that. Garrett says, usually once fatigue kicks in badly, I just cycle 0.1 walk with 0.3 run. Dude, I think that's so fine. Again, you're getting all that cool aerobic adaptation with less of the physical strain on the body. So goal for every run walk is run walk minimum 75% run to a 25% walk. And I think that makes a lot of sense. The more we can spend in that time frame for you and your body is able to recover from it, I think the better off you're going to be, the more resilient your body becomes. As we're in April now, so it's not, or it's been right around 90 days. And I bet your body feels more resilient now, even though the volume is still relatively high, than when we started all of this. So that's amazing. And it will keep getting better as we get closer towards the half marathon race. So super cool. Also, I do still need to sign up for that. Oops. But the plan is still coming up. I think Nate is still planning on doing it with Morgan. And so we will find a way to make it work. Same. Yeah. It's just like a big commitment, like actually going in and signing up and doing the whole thing. It's very easy to do. It doesn't take long. Just need to actually do it. Are you getting up to anything fun this weekend, Garrett? Nothing crazy. Just chill weekend with the pup. I think that's great. I think Bongo's going to have a great time with it. Big growth spurt this week. Bongo's getting bigger. I need a progress update for your running, and I need to see a Bongo update to see how much bigger he's getting. At any rate, if anybody else is new in the chat, please say hi. Would love to hear how your running's going, what you're getting up to, or if there's anything I can help you with your running. I'll give it a minute, but if it's just me and Garrett and I talk to Garrett on a somewhat regular basis, then I can let folks go for the weekend and look forward to chatting more in the coming weeks. because every Saturday morning I do this at 9 a.m. Let's see. I'll give it, I don't know, let's say until 9:31. I will pop off if I don't see anything else coming up in here. I did also release a new video really early this morning. I had it scheduled to post at 1 a.m. because it took me a while to get it done. And then once all the checks and everything went through, that all ended up being good. It was able to post at 1 this morning. And I think that's fun. You should give it a look if you guys popped into the channel here. But it's 9:31. I don't see anything new, which is totally okay. This is just going to keep growing every Saturday at 9 a.m. I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to be pretty consistent with it. So, with that said, I hope everybody has a great weekend. Do something good for your body. I'll look forward to seeing you guys soon. Yeah. Have a great weekend, guys. Bye.